Mariano didn't look at me with disgust. He looked at me with hunger. He didn't care that I was 6 months pregnant with another man's child. He only cared that the bump under my silk dress looked enough like a Mancini to fool a probate judge and secure a $30 million inheritance. The ice cream had turned into soup 20 minutes ago. A puddle of green pistachio cream spread across the white marble table like something sick. I should have just ordered water. Should have picked a different place to work. Somewhere quiet and cheap instead of Gioia Ristorante, where the whole front wall was made of glass windows that let everyone walking by see inside. But the job at the museum paid me enough for one small treat, and I talked myself into believing that hiding out in the open was smarter than staying locked in my tiny apartment all day. My tablet glowed with old Italian shipping records from the 1400s that I needed to finish organizing by Friday. The green dress I bought at the thrift store last month pulled tight across my belly when I leaned forward to read. 6 months pregnant. The baby kicked against my ribs like it was trying to remind me we were running out of time. Running out of safe places to hide. I put my hand on the spot where I felt the movement. The baby pushed back against my palm. Not his, I thought to myself, talking to the father who wasn't around anymore. The father whose face I'd been running from ever since that one stupid night that changed everything. Never his. Leisha! The voice cut through all the background noise of forks scraping plates and people talking at their tables. I knew that voice. Would know it anywhere, even in my nightmares. I looked up slowly. My heart dropped into my stomach before I even saw him. Mariano Mancini stood right there, 3 feet from my table. His blonde hair was combed back perfectly, not a single hair out of place. The dark gray suit he wore probably cost more money than I made in 3 months. His blue eyes looked me over like I was a car he might buy, starting at my face and moving down slowly to where my hand still rested on my pregnant belly. He didn't look surprised. He looked like he was doing math in his head. I thought that was you. He pulled out the chair across from me without asking if he could sit down. You look different. Different. Not surprised. Not asking how I'd been. Just different, like he expected me to look exactly the same as the day I'd walked out of his fancy apartment 8 months ago, leaving behind his credit cards and his mean comments, and the way he pretended to care about me when really he just wanted to own me. Mariano! I kept my voice flat and reached for my tablet like I could pack up everything and disappear into thin air. I'm working. At lunch. In a place like this. He looked around the restaurant at the expensive light fixtures hanging from the ceiling, at the leather seats the color of dried blood, at the waiters moving between tables like dancers. I didn't know museum work paid so well these days. The tablet felt slippery in my sweaty hands. What do you want? Can't I just say hello to my ex? He sat back in the chair like he owned it, like he owned the table, like he owned me. Especially when she's clearly going through something. Before we go deeper into this story, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. This one is going to break your heart and set your soul on fire. Hit that subscribe button because you do not want to miss what happens next. His eyes dropped to my stomach again. Stayed there. I pulled my dress tighter, but there was no way to hide it anymore. No way to hide anything from Mariano, who'd always been good at finding the things that could hurt you and using them against you later. When did this happen? He asked it like we were talking about the weather. Last time I heard anything about you, you were living in some cheap place near the university, pretending you didn't need anyone's help. I don't owe you any explanations. No, you don't. He relaxed completely in his chair, totally calm, totally in charge. But I'm curious. Who's the father? Some broke college professor? Another translator working for pennies? His smile didn't touch his eyes at all. Or did you finally find someone with real money? The restaurant seemed to get smaller around us. I suddenly noticed the other people eating dinner, the couples at tables near us who'd stopped talking to listen to our conversation instead. A woman in white pants 2 booths away had her phone pointed in our direction. I tried to stand up, but Mariano's hand shot out fast. He didn't touch me, just put his hand on the table between us like a wall. Don't leave yet. I actually came here looking for you on purpose. I don't want to hear anything you have to say. Not even if it helps both of us. He reached into his jacket pocket slowly and pulled out a fancy cream-colored envelope. Thick, expensive paper. The kind lawyers use. He set it down on the table between my melted ice cream and my work deadline. You're in trouble, Leisha. Stop pretending you're not. 6 months pregnant, working temporary jobs, living in a neighborhood where you have to pay for parking on the street. My face got hot. I'm doing fine. You're barely surviving. There's a difference. He tapped the envelope with one finger. And I'm offering you something better than just surviving. I'm offering you real security. A real future. For you and for your baby. Your baby. Not the baby. Your baby. Like he was already changing the story in his head. What's in the envelope? A deal. He pushed it closer to me. My grandfather died last month. Left everything in his will. $30 million in the bank, the big house in Palm Beach, all his investments. But there's a catch. I don't get any of it unless I prove I can carry on the family name properly. That I have a kid to pass it all down to someday. I understood what he meant, and my whole body went cold. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. His voice got quieter, almost gentle, which somehow made it worse. I don't need you to love me, Leisha. I don't even need you to like me. I just need you to act like we're together for 6 months. Maybe a year. We get married, you have the baby, we show up to court with the kid and call it a Mancini, and then we both walk away rich enough to never worry about money again. The baby isn't yours. The baby isn't anyone's right now. He leaned forward, and I could smell his expensive cologne. It made me feel sick. You said it yourself back when we were together. The father took off the second you told him. No name on any papers. No one claiming the kid. Which means legally, officially, in every way that actually matters, this baby is whatever we decide to call it. My hands were shaking. I pressed them flat on the table to make them stop. You've lost your mind. I'm being realistic. He waved his hand at me, at my cheap dress and melted ice cream, and the tablet showing work that would barely pay my rent. Look at yourself. Look at what's coming. Single mom, no family to help, no money saved up. What happens when the baby gets here? When you can't work late anymore because you're up all night? When daycare costs more than you make in a month? He wasn't lying. I'd thought about this exact thing every single night for 5 months straight. I can give you something better, Mariano kept going. Nannies to help with the baby. Real health insurance. A trust fund, so the kid never has to struggle. Your child grows up in a mansion in Palm Beach, instead of whatever government housing you'll end up in when the work runs out. In exchange for what? Lying and saying you're the father. In exchange for saving both of us. He pushed the envelope until it touched my hand. I already filed the paperwork with the county. Declaration of paternity. I made the date 8 months ago, back when we were still together. As far as the state of Florida knows, I'm already the father on record. This, he tapped the envelope, just makes it real and official. The whole room tilted sideways. You can't just do that. You can't legally. I already did it. His smile looked sharp and mean. And before you start thinking about fighting me, ask yourself what happens when you try. Court costs money. Lawyers cost money. DNA tests cost money. All things you don't have right now. He was trapping me, backing me into a corner the same way he used to do when we fought about money or my job or anything else he wanted to control. Think about it. He stood up and buttoned his jacket like this was just a normal business meeting. You have until Friday. After that, the will goes through probate, and if I don't have an heir to show them, everything goes to charity instead. Your choice. Give your kid a life with everything they could ever want, or force them to struggle and go without just because you're too stubborn to accept help when it's offered. He started walking toward the door, then stopped and looked back at me. Oh, and Leisha, you really should take better care of yourself. All that stress you're carrying around isn't good for the baby. He left, just walked away, and left the envelope sitting on the table like a bomb waiting to go off. I stared at it. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. My brain was racing, trying to figure out what to do, how to fight this. He'd already filed legal papers, put his name down as the father, started changing reality before I even knew the game had started. The baby kicked again, harder this time, like it knew something was wrong. And that's when I noticed him. Across the restaurant, half hidden in the shadows near the front entrance where the host stood, there was a man I hadn't seen before. He put down the menu he'd been holding. Dark skin like olives, black hair cut very short and neat, tattoos crawling up his neck above the collar of an expensive black shirt. He was watching me with the kind of complete stillness that made my survival instincts start screaming. The kind of stillness that meant danger. The kind that meant power. Our eyes met for maybe half a second. His eyes were so dark they looked black. Cold. Absolutely sure of something I didn't understand yet. Norberto Siciliano didn't smile. Didn't wave. Didn't do anything to show he knew me. He just lifted one finger in a tiny signal to someone I couldn't see, then looked back down at his menu like I was a problem he'd already figured out how to solve. The baby kicked a third time. And right then, sitting there with Mariano's envelope in front of me and Norberto's eyes burning a hole through my back, I finally understood the real truth. I wasn't choosing between Mariano's deal and being independent. I was choosing which dangerous man I'd rather owe my entire life to. I sat frozen at that table for what felt like forever, but was probably only 2 minutes. The envelope sat there like poison. My ice cream had turned into complete liquid, dripping off the edge of the table onto the shiny white floor. I needed to leave, needed to grab my stuff, and run before things got worse. But my legs wouldn't move. My whole body felt stuck. The baby kicked again, softer this time, like it was trying to calm me down instead of the other way around. I finally forced myself to look up from the envelope. I scanned the restaurant to see if Mariano was still around, maybe standing somewhere watching me panic. He used to do that when we dated. Say something horrible, and then watch my reaction like it was a show. But he was gone. The front door was closed. Through the glass I could see him outside on the sidewalk, phone already against his ear. Probably calling his lawyer to celebrate how easy it had been to corner me. That's when I felt it. Someone was still watching me. Not the normal kind of watching where people glance over because they heard arguing. This was different. Heavy. Focused. Like a weight pressing on the back of my neck. I turned slowly in my seat. The man near the entrance hadn't moved. He still sat at that small table by the front door, still holding the same menu he hadn't actually read once. The kind of table they give people who are waiting, except he clearly wasn't waiting for anything. He was watching me. Now that I was looking straight at him, I could see him better. He looked about 35, maybe a bit older. Everything he wore was black. Not cheap black clothes from a regular store, but the expensive kind that fit perfectly without trying to show off. His hair was cut so short it was almost shaved. The ink on his neck crawled up from under his collar in patterns that looked complicated and planned out. Professional work that probably cost thousands of dollars and took months to finish. But his face was what made my stomach flip. He wasn't pretty boy handsome. His face was too hard for that. Too sharp. His jaw looked like someone had cut it from rock. A thin white scar sliced through his left eyebrow. But his eyes froze me in place. They were so dark I couldn't tell where the pupil ended and the rest began. And they stared at me with an intensity that made me want to crawl under the table and hide. I looked away fast, grabbed my tablet, and pretended to be busy. My heart pounded, so loud I could hear it in my head. Maybe he was just some random person. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe being pregnant was making me see danger everywhere. But I knew better. I'd spent 6 months learning to spot trouble before it found me. Learning to feel when something was wrong. And right now, every alarm bell in my head was going off screaming that this man was dangerous. That he wasn't here by chance. That he knew exactly who I was. I snuck another quick look. Still watching. Hadn't moved an inch. A waiter walked up to his table and said something. I saw the man shake his head once, sharp and final. The waiter backed away immediately, like he'd been told not to ask again. That told me everything. Normal people don't sit in fancy restaurants without ordering. Normal people don't scare waiters with one look. Normal people don't stare at random pregnant women with that kind of cold attention. The first page was a petition for custody and paternity, filed by Mariano Vincenzo Mancini on behalf of the unborn child of Alicia Marie Palermo. Dated 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. Before he even showed up at the restaurant. He'd already started this process before he offered me his deal. I flipped through the pages. Legal words I barely understood. Claims and declarations, and whereas and therefore. But some parts were clear enough. Mariano was claiming he was the father. Claiming we'd been in a relationship when the baby was conceived. Claiming he had rights to the child and wanted joint custody established before birth. There was a document from the county clerk's office. A declaration of paternity form, signed and stamped and official. Dated 8 months ago, like Mariano said at the restaurant. But I'd never signed anything. Never agreed to put his name on any paperwork. He'd done it anyway. Forged my signature probably, or paid someone to file it without my consent. And now, according to the state of Florida, Mariano Mancini was legally listed as the father of my baby. I sat down hard on my bed. The papers spread out around me like evidence of a crime I didn't commit. This was worse than I thought. Way worse. Mariano hadn't just threatened me at a restaurant. He built an entire legal case, created a paper trail that made his lies look like truth. And he'd done it all before even talking to me, which meant he'd been planning this for weeks. My phone rang. I grabbed it without looking, thinking maybe it was my lawyer. Except I didn't have a lawyer because I couldn't afford one. "Did you get the papers?" Mariano's voice came through smooth and calm like we were old friends chatting. "You forged my signature. I protected my interests." He didn't even sound guilty. "The deadline for the will is tomorrow, Leisha. I told you that. I need documentation proving I have an heir on the way. Now I have it. This is fraud. It's illegal. It's strategic." I could hear him smiling through the phone. "And here's the thing about family court. It moves slow. Even if you fight this, even if you get a lawyer somehow and contest the paternity claim, it'll take months. Maybe a year. By then the baby will be born. By then my grandfather's estate will be settled. By then it won't matter what the DNA test says, because I'll have already won." "You're insane." "I'm practical," he said again, like it was his favorite word. "Look, I'm not trying to be the bad guy here. I'm offering you a way out. You sign the agreement in that folder, acknowledge me as the father, show up to one court date to make it official, and I'll cut you a check for $200,000. Right now. Today. Money you can use to hire the best lawyers in Florida if you really want to fight me later. Or you can use it to disappear somewhere I'll never find you. $200,000. More money than I'd ever seen in my life. Enough to start over somewhere far away. Enough to hire help when the baby came. Enough to stop living in a studio with windows that didn't lock. And if I don't sign, then I'll see you in court next month, where I'll have 6 lawyers and you'll have none. Where I'll present documents showing we were in a committed relationship. Where I'll paint you as an unstable single woman who can't provide for a child. Where I'll win, Leisha. Because I always win." He hung up. I sat there holding the phone, staring at the papers spread across my bed, feeling the baby kick inside me like it was trying to fight its way out. Mariano had me trapped. The legal system was already on his side because he'd poisoned it with his lies before I even knew the game had started. Fighting him would cost money I didn't have and time I didn't have and energy I definitely didn't have. But there was still that card in my bag. That phone number. Those 3 words written on the back. The baby's mine. If Norberto really was the father, he could prove it. Could fight Mariano's claim with a DNA test. Could probably make all of this go away with one phone call because men like him didn't need lawyers. They had other ways of solving problems. But if I called that number, I'd be trading one trap for another. Mariano wanted to use my baby to steal an inheritance. What did Norberto want? What did men like him, men with tattoos that meant something dark and permanent, what do they do with babies that belong to them? I pulled out the card, stared at the number. The baby kicked hard against my ribs. I had until tomorrow to decide which monster would own my child's future. I spent the rest of Thursday pacing my tiny apartment, back and forth from the kitchen corner to the bathroom door that didn't close right. The card with Norberto's number sat on my bed where I dropped it. I must have picked it up and put it down 20 times. Call him. Don't call him. Call him. Don't call him. By the time the sun went down, I still hadn't decided. I made myself eat some crackers, even though my stomach was twisted in knots. Tried to sleep on the couch because my bed was covered in Mariano's legal papers and I couldn't stand to look at them anymore. I must have finally dozed off around 10 because the next thing I knew, someone was knocking on my door. Not normal knocking. 3 slow, heavy knocks that made the whole door shake in its frame. I sat up fast, my heart already racing. Checked my phone. 1 in the morning. Nobody knocks on your door at 1 in the morning with good news. I crept to the door and looked through the peephole. Norberto stood in the hallway. He wore the same black clothes from the restaurant. His face showed nothing, just that same blank expression like he was made of stone. Behind him I could see 2 other men, big guys in dark jackets. They stood on either side of my door like guards. I didn't open it. "I know you're there," Norberto said. His voice was quiet, but it carried through the door like he was standing right next to my ear. "Open the door, Alicia. We need to talk." "Go away," I called back. My voice cracked halfway through. "I'll call the cops." "No, you won't." He said it like he was telling me the weather. "Just a fact. Because then you'll have to explain why a man you claim not to know has your address. Why he knows about the baby. Why you've been hiding for 6 months. He was right and he knew it." I stood there with my hand on the door, trying to decide what to do. The chain lock wouldn't stop him if he really wanted in. The windows didn't lock. I had no back exit. Nowhere to run. The baby kicked like it could sense my fear. "I'm not here to hurt you," Norberto said, softer now. "If I wanted to hurt you, you'd already be hurt. Open the door." I don't know why I did it. Maybe because I was exhausted. Maybe because part of me knew he was telling the truth. Maybe because I was out of options and out of time. I opened the door but kept the chain on. Through the gap I could see him clearly now. Up close, he looked even more dangerous than at the restaurant. The tattoos on his neck continued down under his collar. His eyes were completely black in the dim hallway light. But he wasn't doing anything threatening. His hands hung loose at his sides. His face stayed calm. "Take the chain off," he said. "No." Something that might have been amusement flickered across his face. "You think that chain will stop me if I want to come in? Maybe not. But it makes me feel better." He actually smiled at that. Small, barely there but real. "Fair enough." He reached into his pocket. I flinched back, but he just pulled out a folded piece of paper. He pushed it through the gap in the door. "What is this?" "Proof," he said simply. I unfolded it with shaking hands. It was a printout from some medical lab. DNA paternity test results. 2 columns of numbers and letters I didn't understand. But at the bottom in plain English it said, "Probability of paternity, 99.97%. "How did you get my DNA?" My voice came out barely a whisper. "The wine glass. From the restaurant. You left it on the table when you ran." He said it like it was obvious. Like tracking my DNA from a glass I'd used days ago was a normal thing people did. I had it tested against mine. The results came back this afternoon. I stared at the paper. At the proof in black and white that this terrifying stranger was telling the truth. That he really was the father of my baby. "That night 6 months ago," I said slowly, trying to piece together memories that had stayed fuzzy on purpose. "You told me you worked in imports." "I do import things." His face stayed blank. "Just not legal things. And your name isn't really what you told me, is it?" "No." At least he was honest about being a liar. "What do you want?" I asked. "Why track me down now? Why not just leave me alone?" His expression changed. Got colder somehow, more focused. "Because another man is trying to claim what's mine. And I don't share. The baby isn't a thing you can own." "No," he agreed. "But the baby is mine to protect. Mine to provide for. Mine to raise in my world with my name." He leaned closer to the gap in the door. "A Mancini couldn't father a lion. That man is a parasite in an expensive suit. But you're carrying a Siciliano. Do you understand what that means? That you're in the Mafia." I said it flat out. No point pretending anymore. He didn't deny it. Just nodded once. "My family has existed for 200 years. We have rules. Traditions. And one of the oldest rules is this. Blood protects blood. That child in your belly has my blood. Which means anyone who threatens that child threatens me." Mariano filed legal papers. He forged documents. "The court thinks he's the father. The court is wrong." Norberto's voice went hard as steel. "And Mariano Mancini will learn what happens to men who try to steal from my family." The way he said it made ice run down my spine. This wasn't a threat. It was a promise. "I don't want anyone to get hurt," I said. "Then you should have thought of that before you let him put his hands on you at that restaurant." His eyes locked onto mine through the gap. "But it's too late now. He made his choice when he filed those papers. When he put his name next to my child's name. When he thought he could trick a judge into giving him something that belongs to me. So what happens now? Now you let me in. We talk about how to handle this properly. Or you keep me out here and I handle it my way, which will be messier but will end the same." He paused. "Your choice." It wasn't really a choice. We both knew that. I closed the door, unhooked the chain, and opened it again. Norberto stepped inside. The two men in the hallway didn't follow, just stayed posted outside my door like sentries. He looked around my apartment, took in the hot plate kitchen, the paper scattered on my bed, the windows that didn't lock. His face showed disgust for the first time since I'd met him. "You've been living here? In this?" He said it like I was living in a dumpster. "It's what I can afford." "Not anymore." He turned to face me fully. "Pack a bag. You're coming with me." "I'm not going anywhere with you." "Yes, you are." He said it with absolute certainty. "Because tomorrow Mariano will show up at court expecting you to sign his agreement. And when you don't show up, he'll come looking for you here. And I prefer my child's mother not be in danger when that happens." "Where would I even go?" "Somewhere safe. Somewhere he can't find you. Somewhere my people can watch over you until the baby comes." He looked at my stomach, and for just a second his expression softened. "Somewhere you can actually rest instead of living in fear." The baby kicked again, gentler this time. "And after the baby's born?" I asked. "What then?" "Then the child takes their place in the Siciliano family. As is their right. As is their birthright." His eyes came back to mine. "And you decide if you want to be part of that world or not. But either way, my child will know their father. You're giving me a choice. I'm giving you the only choice that matters." He moved toward the door. "Pack light. We leave in 10 minutes. He walked out into the hallway with his guards and closed the door behind him, giving me privacy but not really. I could see their shadows under the door, hear their quiet voices talking in what sounded like Italian. I stood in the middle of my apartment, brain spinning. 10 minutes to pack up my entire life. 10 minutes to decide if I was really doing this. 10 minutes before I got into a car with a crime boss and disappeared to God knows where. The smart thing would be to grab my phone and call 911. Tell them men were forcing me to go with them. Get the police involved. Get help. But then what? The police would ask questions I couldn't answer. Why was Norberto here? How did he know where I lived? What was his connection to me? And eventually they'd figure out I'd slept with him, that I was carrying his baby, that I'd been hiding from him for 6 months. They want to know why. And I didn't have good answers that wouldn't make everything worse. Plus, Mariano's court date was tomorrow. If I called the cops and got stuck dealing with police reports and statements all night, I'd miss the hearing. And if I missed the hearing, Mariano would win by default. The judge would see his paperwork, see that I didn't show up to contest it, and stamp it all as official. Game over. I grabbed my old backpack from the closet and started throwing clothes into it. Didn't think about what I was packing, just grabbed things. T-shirts, sweatpants, the one nice dress I owned, underwear, my toothbrush, the prenatal vitamins from the bathroom. Mariano's papers were still spread across my bed. I stared at them while I packed. All those legal words that added up to him stealing my baby's identity. His court date was at 9 in the morning. He'd be there with his lawyers, expecting me to either show up and sign his agreement or not show up at all and let him win. But what if I did neither? An idea started forming in my head. Risky. Probably stupid. But maybe the only way out of this mess that didn't end with me completely under someone's control. I grabbed the papers and shoved them in my backpack. Grabbed my laptop and tablet too. Everything I might need. Then I did something that surprised even me. I pulled out my phone and typed out a text message to Mariano's number. "I'll be at the courthouse tomorrow. 9 a.m. We need to talk before the hearing." I hit send before I could change my mind. 3 dots appeared immediately. He was awake. Probably couldn't sleep either, too excited about winning. His reply came back fast. Smart choice. "See you there." I deleted the texts and shoved my phone in my pocket. Knock, knock, knock. 3 heavy hits on the door. Time was up. I swung my backpack over my shoulder, took one last look at my apartment that had been my safe hiding place for 6 months, and opened the door. Norberto stood there looking at his watch. 8 minutes. Not bad. "Where are we going?" "You'll see when we get there." He started walking down the hallway toward the stairs. His 2 guards fell into step behind us, one in front of me and one behind. Like a sandwich where I was the filling. We went down 3 flights of stairs and out into the parking lot. A black SUV sat there with the engine already running. The windows were so dark I couldn't see inside. Norberto opened the back door and waited for me to get in. I hesitated. Once I got in that car, there was no taking it back. No changing my mind. I'd be in his world, playing by his rules. Tick-tock, one of the guards said behind me. Not mean, just stating a fact. I climbed in. Norberto slid in next to me. The two guards got in front, one driving and one in the passenger seat. We pulled out of the parking lot and onto the dark, empty streets. Where are we going? I asked again. A house I own, about an hour north of here. You'll be safe there until after the baby comes. And then, we'll figure that out when the time comes. He looked out the window at the passing street lights. Right now the priority is keeping you away from Mariano until I can deal with him properly. Deal with him. Those words hung in the air like a threat. You're not going to kill him, are you? I kept my voice low, even though the guards up front probably heard everything anyway. Norberto turned to look at me. His face was blank, but his eyes were cold. Do you care if I do? Honestly, I wasn't sure anymore. Mariano had tried to steal my baby for money, had forged legal documents, had trapped me in a corner with no good way out. Part of me wanted him to suffer for that. But murder was different. Murder was permanent. Murder made me complicit in something I couldn't take back. I don't want blood on my hands, I said carefully. Then keep your hands clean. Let me worry about Mariano. We drove in silence for a while. My hand rested on my belly, feeling the baby shift and move inside me. This tiny person who didn't ask to be born into this mess. Didn't ask to be fought over by men who saw them as property. Can I ask you something? I said quietly. Norberto nodded. That night 6 months ago, at the work event, did you know who I was? Did you plan that? He was quiet for a long moment, long enough that I thought maybe he wouldn't answer. No, he finally said. That night was chance. Bad timing. Good wine. Poor decisions on both our parts. He glanced at me. But the moment I realized you were pregnant and hiding, I made it my business to find you. Took 3 months to track you down. You're good at disappearing. Not good enough, apparently. Nobody disappears from me forever. He said it like a simple fact. My family has eyes everywhere. Contacts in every city. It was only a matter of time. The car turned onto a highway heading north out of Miami. Fewer lights out here. More darkness. What if I ran? I asked, testing him. What if I waited until you weren't looking and just disappeared again? You could try. He didn't sound worried. You'd last maybe 3 days before I found you. And then I'd be less understanding about giving you choices. His eyes locked onto mine. Don't mistake my patience for weakness, Leisha. I'm being gentle because you're carrying my child. But if you cross me, you'll learn very quickly why people fear the Siciliano name. A chill ran down my spine. We drove for another 40 minutes before pulling off onto a side road. Then onto a private driveway that went on forever through trees and darkness. Finally, we stopped in front of a house that was more like a compound. High walls, security cameras, lights everywhere. Home sweet home, one of the guards said from the front seat. He didn't sound like he was joking. Norberto got out and I followed. The air smelled like ocean salt and night-blooming flowers. We were close to the water. I could hear waves in the distance. Come on, Norberto said, heading toward the front door. I'll show you to your room. You should rest. Tomorrow's going to be interesting. Tomorrow. The court date. Where Mariano would be waiting for me. Where I was going to show up and play both sides against each other. Keep Mariano thinking I might still sign his deal. Keep him hoping and distracted. While Norberto thought I was hiding here safe under his protection. It was a dangerous game. The kind that could get me killed if either of them figured out I was lying to both of them. But it was the only way I could see to buy myself time. Time to figure out a third option. A way out that didn't end with me belonging to either of them. The baby kicked hard against my ribs. I followed Norberto inside, already planning how I'd sneak out in the morning to get to that courthouse. The house was huge. Not fancy in a showy way, but expensive in a quiet way that was somehow scarier. Everything looked solid and permanent. Like this place had been here forever and would be here forevermore. Norberto led me up a wide staircase to the second floor. Your room is here. Bathroom attached. Door locks from the inside if it makes you feel safer, but my men patrol the grounds all night, so nobody's getting in. Nobody except the men who already had me trapped here, I thought but didn't say. He pushed open a door to show me a bedroom 3 times the size of my entire apartment. Big bed with clean white sheets. Windows with actual curtains that looked thick enough to block out light. A desk in the corner with a lamp. There's clothes in the closet if you need anything. Food in the kitchen downstairs whenever you're hungry. Just tell one of the guards, and they'll get you whatever you want. He paused at the door. Try to sleep. Like I said, tomorrow will be interesting. He closed the door, and I heard his footsteps going back down the hall. I waited until I couldn't hear him anymore, then locked the door and sat on the bed. My backpack was still on my shoulder. I pulled out Mariano's court papers and spread them across the bed. 9 a.m. hearing. Judge's name was Patricia Delgado. Courtroom 4B at the downtown courthouse. Mariano would be there with his lawyers. He thought I'd either show up to sign or not show up at all. But I had a different plan. I pulled out my laptop and powered it on. The house had Wi-Fi, thank God. I logged into the museum's research database that I used for work. They gave all the archivists access to public record systems so we could verify documents and track down historical information. I typed in Mariano's full name, Mariano Vincenzo Mancini. Pages of results came up. Court filings, property records, business registrations. The guy's whole life laid out in legal documents because rich people's lives were always documented somewhere. I started with his grandfather's will. It had been filed with probate court last month when the old man died. Public record, which meant anyone could read it. I downloaded the PDF and started going through it page by page. The will was 73 pages long. Most of it was legal language about trusts and assets and distributions. But there was the clause Mariano mentioned. Section 14, paragraph 3. The primary heir must demonstrate capacity for familial responsibility through documentation of marriage and proof of an heir, either born or expected, before the age of 35. Mariano was 34. His birthday was in 6 months. I remembered that from when we dated. So he had a deadline. No heir by his birthday meant no inheritance. But that wasn't the interesting part. I kept reading through the sections about how the money would be distributed. The grandfather had $30 million in various accounts and investments. Properties in 3 states. Stock portfolios. Business interests in import companies and shipping firms. Import companies. That word again. I opened a new search and typed in the company names listed in the will. Started pulling up their business records and tax filings. That's when I found it. 3 of the companies listed in the will showed Mariano as a manager or executive. He'd been running parts of his grandfather's business empire for the past 5 years. And the financial records showed something weird. Money moving in and out that didn't match up. Payments to vendors that didn't exist when I cross-checked them. Transfers to offshore accounts. All of it signed off by Mariano. He'd been stealing from his own grandfather. I sat back, staring at the screen. This was why he was so desperate. It wasn't just about wanting the inheritance. It was about needing to get control of the estate before anyone else looked too closely at the books. If the estate went to charity like the will said it would without an heir, there'd be audits, investigations, people going through every transaction with microscopes, and they'd find what I just found. They'd realize millions of dollars had disappeared under Mariano's watch. He'd go to prison, but if he inherited everything, he'd be in charge. He could bury the evidence, cover his tracks, blame it on his dead grandfather or bad accounting or anything else. Nobody would question the heir of the estate about where the money went. My baby wasn't just a ticket to an inheritance. My baby was Mariano's get-out-of-jail-free card. I took screenshots of everything, downloaded the files to my laptop, made copies and emailed them to myself just in case. This was leverage. This was power. This was proof that Mariano wasn't just greedy, he was desperate and dangerous. A knock on the door made me jump. Yeah, I called out, quickly closing my laptop. Just checking if you need anything. It was one of the guards from earlier. His voice was muffled through the door. Water? Food? I'm fine. Thanks. All right. We're right outside if you change your mind. Right outside. Of course they were. I wasn't a guest. I was a prisoner with nice furniture. I looked at the windows. They were big enough to climb through if I needed to. But we were on the 2nd floor, and there were probably cameras everywhere outside. Plus those guards patrolling. Getting out wouldn't be as simple as just running. I needed a better plan. I pulled out my phone and looked at the time. 2 in the morning. 7 hours until the court hearing. I had to be there. Had to face Mariano and stall him somehow while I figured out what to do with this information I'd found. But first I had to get out of this house without Norberto knowing. I opened my backpack and pulled out the nice dress I'd packed. The green one from the thrift store that was the only professional-looking thing I owned. I'd need to look put together for court. Look like someone a judge would take seriously. Then I lay down on the bed fully clothed and set a silent alarm on my phone for 6 a.m. That would give me time to sneak out before Norberto woke up, before the guards changed shifts or whatever guards did in the morning. I closed my eyes but didn't really sleep. Just lay there in the dark, feeling the baby move inside me, thinking about the web of lies I was caught in. Mariano was a thief trying to use my baby to cover up his crimes. Norberto was a criminal trying to claim my baby as family property. And I was stuck between them, pregnant and alone and running out of options. But now I had something neither of them knew about. I had proof of Mariano's fraud, evidence that could destroy him if I used it right. The question was how to use it without getting myself killed in the process. My phone buzzed silently under my pillow at 6 a.m. I got up carefully, changed into the green dress, grabbed my backpack with my laptop and all the evidence inside it. I unlocked my door and peeked out into the hallway. Empty. Quiet. Just the sound of birds starting to wake up outside. I crept down the hallway in the opposite direction from where Norberto's room probably was. Found a back staircase that led down to what looked like a kitchen. The lights were off, but I could see well enough in the early morning glow coming through the windows. There was a door at the back. I tested the handle slowly. Unlocked. I slipped outside into the cool morning air. The property was huge, surrounded by trees and high walls. But there had to be a gate somewhere. A driveway. A way out. I started walking, staying close to the shadows, one hand on my belly and one hand gripping my backpack strap. Behind me, the house stayed dark and quiet. I had maybe an hour before someone noticed I was gone. Maybe less. I needed to make it count. The driveway was easier to find than I thought. Just follow the tire tracks in the gravel until I hit the main path leading away from the house. The gate at the front was tall and metal, but it wasn't locked. I guess when you have armed guards patrolling, you don't worry too much about locks. I slipped through and started walking down the road. My phone said I was 40 minutes north of Miami. Too far to walk, especially while pregnant. But I got lucky. A bus stop sat at the corner where the private road met the main highway. And according to the schedule posted on the sign, a bus into the city came through at 7:15. I sat on the bench and waited, watching the sun come up over the trees. My heart wouldn't stop pounding. Every car that passed made me think it was Norberto's guards coming to drag me back. But the bus came first. I climbed on, paid with the cash in my pocket, and found a seat in the back. An hour later I was standing outside the courthouse. 8:30 a.m. 30 minutes before the hearing. The building was old and gray, with columns out front and security guards checking bags at the entrance. I went through the metal detectors, got my backpack searched, and headed up to the 4th floor where the family courts were. Courtroom 4B was at the end of the hall. The door was closed, but I could see people moving around inside through the small window. I was about to push the door open when someone grabbed my arm. I spun around. Mariano stood there in a perfect navy suit, his blonde hair slicked back, his smile sharp and mean. "I knew you'd come. Let go of me." He did, but stayed close. Too close. "You got my offer, right? 200,000. All you have to do is sign a few papers, and this whole thing goes away easy." "We need to talk," I said, keeping my voice low. "Somewhere private." His eyebrows went up. "Having second thoughts about fighting me?" Something like that. He checked his watch. "We've got 20 minutes. There's a conference room down the hall. Come on." He led me to a small room with a table and chairs. Closed the door behind us. His lawyer was probably already in the courtroom setting up, which meant we were alone. "So," he leaned against the table, arms crossed. "What changed your mind?" "I did some research last night." I pulled out my laptop and opened it. "About your grandfather's companies, the ones you've been managing." His smile faltered just a little. "What about them?" "About the $3 million that's missing from their accounts over the past 2 years." I turned the screen so he could see the records I'd found. Money transferred to fake vendors. Payments to offshore accounts that don't exist. All signed off by you. His face went white. Actually white, like someone had drained all the blood out of him. You've been stealing from your own grandfather, I continued. And when he died and the estate went to probate, you realized auditors would find it. So you needed to inherit everything fast, before anyone looked too closely. That's what this is really about. Not just wanting the money. Needing it to cover up your crimes. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he started laughing. Not a nice laugh. A scary one. You smart little thing. He pushed off from the table and moved closer. Here I thought you were just some broke translator. Didn't realize you knew how to dig. I'm an archivist. I know how to find information. Well, congratulations. You found it. He leaned down so we were eye to eye. Now what are you going to do with it? That depends on you. Does it? His voice dropped lower, more dangerous. Because from where I'm standing, you just told me you have evidence that could send me to prison. Which means you're now a threat. And I don't let threats walk away. My heart started racing faster. I'd made a mistake. Thought having evidence would give me power. But all it did was make me dangerous to him. The evidence is already backed up. I lied, trying to keep my voice steady. If anything happens to me, it automatically gets sent to the police. Bullshit! But he didn't sound completely sure. The door behind us opened. We both turned. Norberto stood in the doorway, still wearing all black. Two of his guards behind him. His face showed nothing, but his eyes were ice cold. I believe you're in the wrong room, Mancini. His voice was quiet, but it filled the whole space like a physical thing. Mariano straightened up, trying to look confident. This is a private conversation. Get out. No. Norberto stepped inside. His guards followed, blocking the door. You're going to sit down. And you're going to listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you. I don't take orders from you. I don't even know who you are. Sit down. The way Norberto said it made it clear what would happen if Mariano didn't listen. Mariano sat. Norberto pulled out the chair across from him and sat too. Casual. Relaxed. Like they were about to have coffee together. But there was nothing casual about the guards blocking the exit, or the way Norberto's hands rested flat on the table. I could see his tattoos, clearly now in the bright courtroom lights. They covered both hands. Symbols and letters and designs that looked old and meaningful. Do you know what these mean? Norberto asked, holding up his hands so Mariano could see them clearly. Mariano didn't answer. They mean I'm made, sworn in, part of something bigger than your little corporate fraud games. Norberto leaned forward. They mean when someone disrespects me, or mine, there are consequences. Old consequences. The kind that don't involve lawyers or judges. Are you threatening me? Mariano tried to sound tough, but his voice shook. I'm educating you. Norberto's eyes didn't blink. 6 days ago you walked into a restaurant and put your hands on a woman carrying my child. You filed false papers claiming my blood is yours. You thought you could steal from the Siciliano family, and we wouldn't notice. The color drained from Mariano's face again. Your child? My child? Norberto said it like he was stating a fact as simple as the sky being blue, which you will now publicly acknowledge. You're going to walk into that courtroom and tell the judge you made a mistake, that you're not the father, that you withdraw all your claims. I can't do that. The inheritance you were going to buy with stolen money. Norberto smiled, cold and sharp. Yes, Lisha told me all about your embezzlement. Interesting reading. Mariano looked at me like I'd betrayed him, which I guess I had. If I drop the claim, I lose everything, Mariano said desperately. The estate goes to charity. I'll have nothing. You'll have your life. Norberto stood up. Which is more than you deserve. But I'm feeling generous today because my child's mother asked me not to kill you. So here's what's going to happen. You withdraw your claim. You leave this courthouse and leave the city. And if I ever see you near Lisha again, if I ever hear you've tried to contact her or the baby, I will personally make sure you disappear. Not arrested. Not prosecuted. Just gone. Do you understand? Mariano nodded, his whole body shaking now. Good. Norberto turned to me. Time to go. The hearing. There is no hearing. Mariano's going to make a phone call to his lawyer right now and cancel it. Aren't you, Mariano? Mariano pulled out his phone with trembling hands. Norberto held out his hand to me. Come on. We're done here. I grabbed my laptop and followed him out of the room. His guard stayed behind with Mariano, making sure he made that call. In the hallway, Norberto finally looked at me. Really looked at me. You ran, he said simply. I had to come here. To do what? Blackmail him yourself. He didn't sound angry. Just curious. To buy time. To find leverage. I clutched my backpack. To not be completely powerless. Something shifted in his expression. Almost like respect. You're smarter than I gave you credit for. Does that change anything? No. He started walking toward the elevator. You're still coming back with me. The baby's still mine. But maybe I'll give you a little more freedom than I planned. He glanced back. You've earned it. We rode the elevator down in silence. His guards were already waiting in the lobby, having left Mariano upstairs to make his calls. Outside, the black SUV sat at the curb, engine running. Get in, Norberto said. I did. Didn't see much point in arguing anymore. I played my hand and lost. Or maybe won a little bit. Hard to tell when you were still a prisoner either way. We drove back north toward the compound. Nobody talked. Norberto spent the whole ride on his phone, speaking rapid Italian to someone, making arrangements for something. I caught a few words here and there, names I didn't recognize, orders being given. When we pulled through the gate, the sun was high and bright. Had to be close to 11 in the morning now. Go upstairs and rest, Norberto said as we got out. You look exhausted. I was exhausted. Hadn't really slept in days. My feet hurt. My back ached. The baby was doing gymnastics against my ribs. But I couldn't rest yet. What happens now? I asked. With Mariano. He withdraws his claim like I told him to. Leaves Miami. That's the end of it. Just like that. Just like that. Norberto headed toward the house. Unless he's stupider than he looks and tries something else. Then it ends differently. I followed him inside. And what about me? What happens to me? He stopped and turned. You stay here until the baby comes. You're safe. You're taken care of. When the time comes, we'll talk about what happens next. That's not really an answer. It's the only answer you're getting right now. His phone rang. He looked at the screen, and his expression changed. Got harder somehow. I need to take this. Go rest. He walked away, already answering the call in Italian. I went upstairs to the room I'd been given. Closed the door. Sat on the bed and stared at the wall. I'd escaped Mariano's trap, only to end up in Norberto's. Sure, this cage was nicer. Better food. Bigger room. But it was still a cage. The baby kicked like it was disagreeing with me. I was about to lie down when I heard shouting from downstairs. Men's voices, angry and loud. I crept to my door and opened it a crack. More shouting. Something in Italian that sounded like cursing. Then Norberto's voice, cold and sharp, cutting through it all. I went to the top of the stairs and looked down. 4 men stood in the front entry. 3 of them were Norberto's guards. The 4th was Mariano. He looked terrible. His perfect suit was wrinkled. His hair was messed up. His face was red and sweaty. And he was yelling at Norberto in a voice that cracked with desperation. You can't do this. You can't just threaten me and expect me to walk away from $30 million. I absolutely can. Norberto stood there calm as stone. And I did. The will reading is in 2 hours. 2 hours. My lawyers are all ready. They're setting up. Mariano's voice got higher, more panicked. If I don't show up with proof of an heir, everything goes to charity. Everything my family built. Everything my grandfather wanted me to have. Your grandfather wanted you to be responsible. Instead, you stole from him. Norberto's voice was ice. You don't deserve his money. That's not your decision to make. You're right. It's the judge's decision. And when I show him proof that you committed fraud, both with the paternity claim and with your grandfather's companies, he'll make sure you never see a penny. Mariano's face went from red to white. You can't prove the company fraud. You don't have access to those records. Leisha gave them to me. Remember? Norberto smiled without any warmth. She's very thorough. Mariano's eyes snapped up to where I stood at the top of the stairs. Pure hate in his expression. You did this. You ruined everything. No, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. You ruined everything when you tried to steal my baby. It's not even your baby anymore. He was fully screaming now. You think you're going to raise it? You think he's going to let you be a normal mother? You're nothing but an incubator to him. Once that baby's born, you'll be thrown away like trash. One of the guards hit him. Hard. Across the face. Mariano went down on his knees, blood dripping from his mouth. You don't speak to her like that, the guard said in accented English. Norberto pulled out his phone and made a call. He showed up at the house. Yes. Bring the car around. He hung up and looked down at Mariano still on his knees. You made a mistake coming here. But since you did, you're going to make yourself useful. What are you talking about? The will reading. 2 hours from now at the Mancini estate. You're going to be there. Norberto's smile got colder. And so am I. 30 minutes later we were all in cars heading south. Mariano rode in one SUV with 2 guards. Norberto and I rode in another with 2 different guards. A third vehicle followed behind us. Why are we going to the will reading? I asked. I thought you told him to drop his claim. I did, but he didn't listen. So now we're going to end this publicly. In front of his whole family. In front of the lawyers and the judge. Norberto looked out the window. Sometimes you have to make an example. Make sure everyone understands what happens when you cross certain lines. You're going to tell them about the fraud. Among other things. The drive took an hour. We pulled up to a huge old house with white columns and perfect green lawns. Palm Beach, where all the richest families lived. Cars filled the driveway. Lots of them. This wasn't just a will reading. This was an event. We got out. Mariano was pulled from the other vehicle, still bleeding from his mouth, his suit torn now. He looked like he'd been through a war. Norberto straightened his black shirt and walked toward the front door like he owned the place. I followed because I didn't know what else to do. The guards surrounded us on all sides. Inside, the house was full of people. Old people in expensive clothes. Lawyers with briefcases. A judge in a regular suit sitting at a big dining table covered in papers. Everyone turned to look when we walked in. Who are you? One of the lawyers stood up. This is a private family matter. My name is Norberto Siciliano. He said it loud enough for everyone to hear. And I'm here because Mariano Mancini has been lying to all of you. The room went completely silent. Mariano tried to say something, but one of the guards pushed him forward into the room. He stumbled and caught himself on a chair. What is the meaning of this? The judge stood up now, too. Mr. Mancini, do you know these people? He knows me, I said, stepping forward. My voice shook, but I made myself keep talking. He told you I'm pregnant with his baby. He filed papers saying he's a father. He's lying. That's a serious accusation, the judge said. I have proof. Norberto pulled an envelope from his jacket. DNA test results. Done by an independent lab. Proving that I am the biological father of Licia Palermo's child. Not Mariano. He handed the envelope to the judge. The room exploded with noise. People talking over each other. The lawyers demanding to see the results. Family members yelling questions at Mariano. The judge opened the envelope and read the papers inside. His face got very serious. Mr. Mancini, did you file a false paternity claim? Mariano didn't answer. Just stood there shaking. Furthermore, Norberto continued, pulling out another envelope. These are financial records showing that Mr. Mancini has been embezzling from his grandfather's companies for over 2 years. Approximately $3 million is missing. All of it traced back to accounts he controlled. He handed those papers to the judge, too. The judge's face went from serious to angry. This is fraud. Multiple counts of fraud. He needed the inheritance fast, Norberto explained calmly, before auditors found the missing money. So he tried to steal someone else's child to meet the requirements of the will. One of the old women in the room, probably Mariano's grandmother or aunt, started crying. Other family members looked at Mariano with disgust and horror. The will is very clear, the judge said. In cases of fraud or criminal activity by the heir, the entire estate is forfeited to charity. Mr. Mancini, you are hereby disqualified from any inheritance. And I'll be forwarding these documents to the police for prosecution. Mariano finally found his voice. No, please. I can explain. I can fix this. You can't fix this, Norberto said quietly. You lost the moment you put your hands on what's mine. 2 actual police officers walked in then. Someone must have called them. They took one look at the situation and moved toward Mariano. Mariano Mancini, you're under arrest for fraud and embezzlement." They handcuffed him right there in front of everyone, read him his rights while his family watched, while the lawyers gathered up papers, while the judge shook his head in disappointment. Mariano looked at me one last time as they led him away. Not with hate anymore, with defeat. The door closed behind him. The room stayed quiet for a long moment. Then Norberto put his hand on the small of my back. "We're done here. Let's go." We walked out into the bright afternoon sun. "Is it really over?" I asked. "With Mariano?" "Yes. He'll spend the next 10 years in prison, if he's lucky." Norberto opened the car door for me. "With us. It's just beginning." I got in the SUV, my mind spinning. Mariano was gone. Actually gone. Arrested in front of his entire family. His life destroyed in the space of 10 minutes. Part of me felt sorry for him, but a bigger part felt relief, so strong it made my hand shake. We drove in silence for a while. The guards up front didn't talk. Norberto stared out the window at the passing houses and palm trees. "Where are we going?" I finally asked. "Back to your compound?" "Not yet." He glanced at me. "There's somewhere else we need to go first. People you need to meet." "What people?" "My family." Those 2 words made my stomach drop. "Right now? Today?" "Yes. Today." He said it like it was obvious. "You're carrying a Siciliano. That makes you part of the family whether you like it or not. They need to meet you. Need to see that you're real." "I'm not ready for this." "Nobody's ever ready." He pulled out his phone and sent a quick text to someone. "But it's happening anyway." We drove for another 20 minutes before pulling up to a restaurant on the water. Not fancy like the place where Mariano had ambushed me. This one looked older, more worn in. The kind of place that had been there forever and would be there forevermore. A sign out front said Gino's in faded red letters. "My uncle owns this place," Norberto said as we got out. "It's where the family meets, where we handle business, where we celebrate births and mourn deaths." He looked at me. "Where we introduce new members." My legs felt weak as I followed him to the front door. The guards came with us but stopped outside, standing watch. Inside, the restaurant was dim and cool. Red leather booths lined the walls. White tablecloths on every table. Smells of garlic and tomato sauce and fresh bread filled the air. But there were no other customers. The whole place was empty except for a group of people sitting at a long table in the back. About 15 people. Men mostly, but a few women too. All ages. All dressed nicely but not fancy. All of them turned to look at us when we walked in. The talking stopped. The room went completely silent. An old man at the head of the table stood up. He had to be at least 70, with white hair and a face full of wrinkles. But his eyes were sharp and clear. He looked at me, then at Norberto. "This is her." His voice was rough like sandpaper. "This is her," Norberto confirmed. "Licia Palermo, mother of my child." The old man walked around the table toward us. He moved slow but steady. When he got close, he reached out and put his hand on my belly without asking permission. I flinched but didn't move away. He kept his hand there for a moment, feeling. The baby kicked against his palm. A smile broke across his weathered face. "Strong." "Good." He looked up at me. "You're healthy." "Yes, sir." "Eating enough?" "Sleeping enough." "I'm trying." He grunted, which I guess meant approval. Then he turned to the table. "Everyone, this is Licia. She carries Norberto's firstborn, which makes her family. Treat her accordingly." The tension in the room broke. People started talking again. A woman about my age got up and came over, smiling. "I'm Bianca, Norberto's cousin. Come sit. You must be exhausted." She led me to the table while Norberto talked quietly with his uncle. Someone brought me a plate of food without asking what I wanted. Pasta with red sauce and meatballs. Fresh bread. A glass of water with lemon. I ate because I was starving, and because it gave me something to do with my hands while everyone stared at me. "How far along are you?" Bianca asked. 6 months. "Boy or girl?" "I don't know yet. Didn't want to find out." "Smart. Let it be a surprise." She squeezed my hand. "Don't worry. We're not scary once you get to know us." Well, most of us aren't. The old man, who I learned was called Uncle Tomas, sat down across from me. "You understand what it means to be part of his family?" I swallowed my mouthful of pasta. Not really. It means loyalty. It means protection. We take care of our own. He leaned forward. But it also means responsibility. Rules. Expectations. You can't just walk away when things get hard. I haven't exactly been trying to walk toward this, I said before I could stop myself. A few people at the table laughed. Uncle Tomas just nodded. Fair enough. My nephew has a habit of making decisions without asking first. But what's done is done. That baby in your belly is a Siciliano, which means you're tied to us now, whether you planned it or not. What if I don't want to be tied to anyone? The table got quiet again. Everyone looked at Uncle Tomas to see how he'd react. He studied me for a long moment. Then he smiled, just a little. I like her. She's got fire. He looked at Norberto, who had come to stand behind my chair. You chose well, even if it was by accident. It wasn't entirely an accident, Norberto said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. He put his hand on my shoulder. Not possessive, just there. I knew who she was that night 6 months ago. Knew she worked for the museum, cataloging Italian historical documents. Knew she was smart and careful and good at finding information. He paused. I didn't plan for things to go as far as they did, but I'm not sorry they did. My brain struggled to process that. You knew who I was? Before. I'd seen you around. At gallery openings. Museum events. Places where my family does business. He looked down at me. I thought you were beautiful. Thought you were interesting. When I saw you at that work party, I took a chance. You lied to me about who you were. Yes. You disappeared the next morning. I had business to handle. By the time I came back to find you, you were already gone. Hidden. His hand squeezed my shoulder gently. It took me 3 months to track you down. And by then you were already pregnant and running scared. I didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know if it made things better or worse. Uncle Tomas cleared his throat. What's done is done. The question now is what happens next. Next we wait for the baby to be born, Norberto said. Then we have a proper baptism. Introduce the child to everyone officially. And the mother? Uncle Tomas looked at me. What does she want? Everyone waited for my answer. The whole table watching me, expecting me to say I wanted to be part of their world. To raise my baby in this life of rules and loyalty and protection that came with a price. But I didn't know what I wanted anymore. 6 months ago I wanted to hide forever. 2 weeks ago I wanted to be left alone. Yesterday I wanted Mariano gone and my baby safe. Today I just felt tired. I want my baby to be safe, I said finally, and healthy, and loved. That's all I want. Then that's what you'll have, Uncle Tomas said firmly. This family protects its children above everything else. Your baby will never want for anything. Will never be in danger. Will grow up knowing exactly who they are and where they come from. And me. You'll be protected too. As the mother of a Siciliano heir. He looked around the table. Everyone here is now responsible for your well-being. If you need anything, you ask. If you're threatened, we handle it. Understood. Murmurs of agreement from everyone. Bianca squeezed my hand again. Welcome to the family. For better or worse. We stayed at the restaurant for another hour. People asked me questions about the baby, about my health, about what I needed. Someone's wife gave me the name of a good doctor who understood how to be discreet. Someone else promised to set up a nursery at Norberto's compound with everything a baby could need. They were kind. All of them. Warmer than I expected. But underneath the kindness I could feel the steel. These were people who'd done things I didn't want to know about. People who lived by rules I didn't understand. People who just absorbed me into their world without asking if I wanted to be absorbed. When we finally left, the sun was setting. Orange and pink across the water. Norberto walked me to the car. You did good in there. Did I have a choice? No. He opened the door for me. But you handled it well anyway. I got in, and he slid in next to me. The driver started the engine. What happens now? I asked. Same question I'd been asking for days. Now you rest. You eat. You let yourself be taken care of until the baby comes. He looked at me. And you stop trying to run. Because there's nowhere to run to anymore. You're one of us now. The car pulled away from the restaurant. In the side mirror I could see the guard standing outside, watching us leave. Uncle Tomas came out and lit a cigarette, talking on his phone. My old life was gone, burned away like paper in fire. My new life was just beginning, and I had no idea if I was ready for it. But ready or not, here it was. The baby kicked against my ribs like it was agreeing. Thank you for staying with me until the very end of this incredible journey. If this story touched your heart, wait until you see what's coming next. It's even more powerful and inspiring than you can imagine. So don't go anywhere. Click on that video showing on your screen right now to dive into another amazing story that will absolutely blow your mind. Trust me, you won't regret it.